Before we do a demonstration, let's do a little presentation to bring you up to date on the background of the Skio Educator Eductor and the Nelson 15. Let's tell you a little bit more about what we're doing here. I want to start this story off with something we learned in 5th grade. In 5th grade, we learned that the body was made of atoms, and that in the outer parts of these atoms are electrons, and the inner parts are the protons and neutrons, etc. But in the outer part are the electrons, and the electrons repel each other, and they never really touch because they have this similar charge. Thereby, you see, the atoms do not touch each other. You cannot touch the chair that you're sitting in. If you slap your hands together, you cannot touch because these electrons repel. So what we are is energy beings that hold the atoms into position, hold the electrons in position, through quantum forces, electromagnetic forces, and a host of other energetic forces. How many electrons are there in one human body? Well, if we take the number of all the grains of sand on the planet Earth and multiply it by all the number of visible stars in the sky, and there are still more electrons in one human body. We are very, very complex and very, very diverse, and we must be able to start off our idea by respecting diversity and trying to expand our medicine into holism rather than reductionism. And we need to take our medicine away from just chemical perspective into the energetic perspective, because even the chemicals do not touch different things. Chemicals don't touch each other. They're held together by bonds, electromagnetic, energetic, chemical, quantic forces. With this knowledge now, why don't we take an analysis of the body electric? Not just the body chemical. You see, the body chemical has been used as a model for so long, and it's really antiquated now with today's science, knowing what we know of electronics and quantum physics. We know so much more about the body, and we know so much more about science. Now let's take today's science, 2014, and let's take today's science of electrophysiology, quantum electrodynamics, and let's apply that to our biology.
But this is controversial. And some people don't like controversy. Small minds see new things as controversy and they fear it, so they move away. Where large minds see new things as opportunities and they want to capitalize on them. This is the next big thing in medicine, energetic medicine. And in the beginning, an idea is ridiculed, violently opposed, and then finally it's accepted as being self-evident. Even our friend Gandhi said something very simple. He said that first they ignore you, they laugh at you, they fight you, and then eventually you win. Biofeedback and energetic medicine is indeed an idea whose time has come, and we will win. And Solon from ancient Greece said, it should be a crime to shirk away from controversy. We should be able to confront these different things and move forward, because this really is the next big idea in medicine.
When we do that, we're going to find out that the body has many electrical forces, and it's the electrical forces that hold the cell together and make it alive. You see, because when the cell loses this electrical force, then it dies, and it succumbs to thermodynamics. Thermodynamics is the law of death. The table is dead, and it obeys the laws of thermodynamics. Heat is transferred from a hot body to a cold body. But yet in your human body, heat is not dissipated from your body. Your body maintains a different temperature than the room, as long as you're alive. So with this idea now of today's physics, we start to understand more about the body. And when we study the body electric, we're going to study many different things. And as we study this in our path, we're going to always be looking at validation, verification, and evidence-based research. This is very important what we're doing. Our first initial research started back in 1973, and a host of different research published in peer-reviewed medical journals. Over 200 articles validating, verifying, and substantiating the SCIO, the educator, the eductor, all being applied to challenge and verify all of the different aspects of what we do. Because as we do things, we need to validate and verify. This is the law. And we work with a agency in Germany, a collection of German lawyers, doctors, scientists, who come together to make a company known as WHOOPers, the World Health Product Rating Service. They evaluate the different companies and try to see just if they're valid and verified for the claims that they make. Now let's take a look at the SCIO's rating from WHOOPers. If we do so, we're going to see that there's device studies, performance specifications. We're going to see that there's safety studies, medical claims registration. In other words, not just safety, but actual registration of the medical claims. We'll be reviewing that in a few minutes. But let's go further. We're going to find that there's peer-reviewed publications, peer-reviewed medical journals, double-blind studies, independent medically supervised studies, not just studies done by the agency or the company, the sponsor, but independent, completely credentialed, institutional review board and ethics committee supervised, quality studies done around the world, done in Europe and in America and Mexico, all around the world. We're going to find that once you get past about 5 or 6 years of peer-reviewed medical studies, you can publish these into certified medical university textbooks. And a vast amount of our research has been published in over 100 certified medical university textbooks. And then the highest level is in Romania, in part of Europe. There is a government credentialing on using these machines. There's a work qualification, a license, a certificate from the government that says that people can become trained in how to use these devices. So thereby we have the highest degree of validation and verification. We get the silver rating from WHOOPers. Now what does the system measure? As we're measuring the body electric, we want to look into the vast amount of medical research in the past that have showed us what we can do in measuring the body electric. And one of the things that we can do is measure the EEG, the electroencephalograph. We can measure the brainwave, and our machine is going to measure this brainwave and be able to tell different facts about the brainwave. And if you have the eductor, it's a very elegant system, being able to measure both right and left hemispheres and to be able to see what type of problems there are. This is a small little voltage signal that's detected by placing transcutaneous electrodes onto the scalp through a head harness and being able to measure the EEG. And then we can tell the different states of relaxation the person might be in, or the different states of excitation that they might be in. EMG, muscle graph, to be able to tell about muscle tension. ECG, the heart is the largest electrical force in the body, creating a very large electrical potential that can be seen as the electrocardiogram. We can also measure the skin resistance. And by measuring the skin resistance, we can get a correlate of reactivity. Now, we could combine these into a type of analysis where we can measure the voltage, the amperage, the resistance, hydration index, how well you're hydrated, oxidation index, how well you're oxidated, and even the pH. So we put this together into what we call the VARHOPE, measuring the body electric in what we call the vital electrical signs. Then the machine is capable of, through a stimulation, to enhance these areas. We find we can increase the voltage and the amperage when they're too low, increase the hydration, increase the oxidation, And now we have found that we can make the patient's body electric 5% better in just a 45-minute test. How have we validated this? This has been validated in over 20 years of double-blind, medically supervised, completely credentialed studies published in peer-reviewed medical journals. We've been validating and verifying and substantiating that this force of the Varhope can be enhanced and can be thereby make the person a little better. And lo and behold, it works dramatically well on athletes, sports performance. 5% better makes you just that little bit more sharp, a little bit more stamina, a little bit more force, because we have shown articles that people can lift more, hold their breath longer. They're more accurate with hand-to-eye coordination or eye-to-foot coordination as well as hand-to-eye. So we've been able to show this and make people better sports performance-wise. And we have a host of different people that have been using the system and coming to the top of their game. From incredible research that started way back in Cleveland and has spread through AC Milan and into the Chinese Olympics, and Novak Djokovic uses the device as well. Now, we're going to be also able to treat the body, as I said, because we're going to measure, but we're also going to be able to treat through a process known as TENS. This is for pain control. By subtle, tiny little microcurrent stimulations, we can help to block pain signals. So this can be used for pain control. It also can be used for electrical wound healing. We have found that a little touch of electricity flowing into the body in the appropriate ways can help to speed up the regeneration of bone cells, skin cells, muscle cells, that it thereby helps to balance the body and to restore health after injury. We also have the ability to put in a cranioelectrical stimulus. The cranioelectrical stimulus is applied to the body at the head, and it's been shown to be helpful in dealing with insomnia, addictions, anxiety, depression, and a host of other different types of conditions affecting the mind. Because what we have developed here, this whole idea of this biofeedback, is now tied into a cybernetic loop, as we're going to measure and then stimulate, measure and stimulate, and see how the body reacts to a stimulus. Thereby, this loop of measuring and auto-focusing and correcting the signal through this loop allows the machine to maximize its potential. And interfacing with the body electric at body electric speeds and at body electric levels, very safe levels, we found that if we match the body electric signals, we can now trickle in electrodes to change those voltage and oxidation and amperage levels. In other words, we can correct the body electric as we are measuring it through an autofocus cybernetic link, a cybernetic loop, an autofocused system. Constantly measuring, constantly seeing, and now you can click on your system and be able to see what's going into the body and how the body's reacting at any time. Validating, verifying, as we've published this research for over 20 years in quality journals throughout the world. You see, today people are anxious for drugless therapies. They're really looking for ways to address their health without the risk of the side effects from those synthetic medications. And we know that a synthetic anything is an insult to the body. We need these synthetics at certain times, but we believe that we should try to use drugless therapies, natural therapies, behavioral medicine, lifestyle. We should be able to try to use a safe form of medicine, embracing the idea of first don't hurt. We should try to do that before we have to resort to more harsh therapies with the drugs or with surgeries. This is the basic belief that we have. And many, many people want this. Many people want to get drugs and they don't want to take the time or the effort to do biofeedback. That's their choice. But for those who really want, and I mean, when I say those, I mean the few, for the few of those who really want to choose drugless therapy, we try to develop a whole system. And the first step of this process is going to be doing a behavioral analysis. We're going to be doing a lifestyle inventory to look at just what is the parts of the body in the behavior that are interfering. Hahnemann, the father of homeopathy, said that certain things suppress and obstruct the process of cure. And we've made this into an SOC, Suppression and Obstruction to Cure Index, that if you smoke or drink too much, have too much coffee, don't exercise, don't drink enough water, cut out organs, the more things that you do, these can help to suppress and obstruct your body's ability to cure. And once we know where you are on this index, we're better able to help you. So we start with the behavioral analysis, proceeding from a behavioral analysis into an electrical analysis, all done quickly, easily, very, very safe, at biological levels, so there's no risk, minimal risk. Out of 35,000 machines sold worldwide, we have no instance of any significant risk ever documented. It has been proven safe and been proven effective, validated and verified through a host of different research that you can look at and see for yourself and investigate and do the due diligence. And when you hear about other machines, you might want to go to Whoopers and compare what scientists, lawyers, and doctors really are saying as they professionally rate each system as to whether they really do have validation. Many people promise it, but very few actually have it. Putting this together, we now have a new type of science, also known as electrical physiological reactivity. Electrophysiological reactivity, or EPR. First credentialed in 1989 in the FDA with the machine known as the EPFX, the very, very first form of our device. We are going to be able to measure the body electrics reactions, the reactivity, which is an electrical measure defined by changes in the amps added to changes to the volts added to changes to the resistance. Then we see how the body reacts electrically to an impulse. We send in an impulse. Now, we can collect impulses because, as I said in the very, very beginning, atoms don't touch. And how do atoms work? How do chemicals work in the body? Well, they work through their electrical fields, and we can measure these electrical fields in a process known as voltammetry, polography. We found that the shark has abilities to react to things at a long distance, but the distance of the shark, because the shark lives in salt water, which is conductive. Now, we take these different compounds in a process known as a QQC, quantum quality control. We can measure the voltammetry electrical signature of an item, which turns out to, as we measure it, in a 22 by 22 by 22 three-dimensional matrix constituting over 10,000 different readings, which draws an electrical picture of this shape, the same type of shape that our tongue works on. And our tongue is a very similar device to this voltammetry. That's how we detect these shapes and how we detect shapes, how we detect those different compounds through the nasal pharynx with the nose and the mouth and the taste receptors and smell receptors. There are receptor sites through all the cells of the body catching shapes. Now, they don't really touch. There's an electrical reaction. And when we measure this electrical reaction and feed it into the body, you see the shark lived in the water. Now, humans have a much less sensitive electrical system, electrosense as we call it. And the electrosense in the human has been put into the olfactory nose. But the humans have a remnant of that electrical reaction. And if we take these compounds and then amplify that signal through the use of the computer, we can get an electrical reactivity, known as the zeroid. And now today we call it the transcutaneous voltammetric evoked potential, TVEP, fully licensed, credentialed with our medical registration in Europe. So now we can look at how a person reacts. We can't really tell exactly, because these things are constantly changing, But we can get some pre-idea, some kind of hint as we look at how the person reacts. So measuring the reactivity of the TVEP or the EPR, we can get these things together, and we can now start to work on balancing the body electric, balancing the voltage and the amperage and the hydration and oxidation potential, and helping to balance the entire body in a new science, fully validated, verified, substantiated. And I'm sorry that the chemical companies are very resistant to this, but yet this is a new form of medicine sweeping across Europe, resisted by people in America, I'm sorry, but yet it is a valid, legal, registered procedure in America as well. So I tried to bring this whole idea together to you. I know that maybe some of this science is beyond you, but you need to know that each step of this process has been validated and verified as best we possibly can to try to offer you safety and efficacy in a scientific, evidence-based process taught in medical doctors around the world. And not only is this easy to learn, but it's very affordable. Because you see, in America and in Europe, insurance companies and governments are paying for biofeedback. Biofeedback is the only form of alternative medicine getting paid. Now, in this form of medicine that we have, we put in homeopathy, we put in naturopathy, herbology, acupuncture, electroacupuncture. We put all of these forms of natural medicine together into one machine that can tie it together and help you to utilize these techniques quickly and easily, safely, and profitably. You see, because now that the insurance company is paying not only for treatments, but also for devices at home for people to use, everybody's now realizing that the synthetic drugs, with their side effects, are oftentimes causing more disease than they cure in the beginning. So people are looking for drugless therapies. And here we have this system, validated and verified, to help with you. And now people are able to see patients at $150 an hour. If they can't pay, we ask that they pay part in karma. But this is what we can now charge insurance companies, work with the system, and develop it. And we have many therapists making $100,000 a year, working 3-4 days a week in their clinics, helping others in a nice, almost part-time job, healing, helping, safe, effective, without those harsh drugs. Part of the medical system, but it's all part of the referral process, because we always work with medical doctors. We're part of the medical system. Biofeedback is part of the medical system. We are not against it. We are here to work within it. And for the people who want to choose those drugs, this is not for you, but for the people who want drugless therapies, we think we have something you might want to consider. And for the people who want state-of-the-art science with quantum physics, electrodynamics, we have something for you. So now we're going to have a demonstration, and you're going to learn a little bit more. And if you have questions, we're here to answer them. This is Desiree Dubonnet, signing off.